Hello everybody and welcome to your Astraordinary Coffee Chats. I'm Davide di Censo.
And I'm Matteo Barbarossa.
And we're the founders of Astra Coffee. And we're here to make your cup of coffee extraordinary. Today we're here with Matteo to talk about how to store your coffee properly. But before we get into storing coffee once we're home, let's talk about how the coffee is stored when you go buy the coffee, right? So once I go into the store, into my preferred grocery store, and I see all these bags of coffee, they all look a little different. Some look like paper, some more metallic, but they all have the nice valve on the top that I usually use to smell my coffee. And that's great. And I would like to understand more about the characteristics of that bag and what does that do to the coffee, how long it keeps it fresh, what is that valve really for if it's not for me to smell the coffee or maybe in addition to me smelling the coffee?
Oh, a lot of questions, a lot of things. So let's start. The function of the bag is to separate the coffee from the external environment. Okay, so the coffee must be separated with the external environment. The coffee do not want to blend with the external environment, do not want to make friendship with anybody, want to stay by itself, okay? So let's separate it as much as you can. So this is the reason why a lot of bags have a layer, have a metallic layer inside. This prevents the outside environment to get in. Okay.
What specifically of the outside is dangerous or detrimental for coffee?
Coffee really hate oxygen, okay? So coffee really do not want to speak with oxygen because oxygen oxide the fats and the oil that are contained into the coffee. But before getting involved into that, I want to take a step back and speaking about how the coffee is really, how the bags of coffee are really filled, okay? Because the best things that a roaster can do is roast the coffee and immediately fill the bag.
Right away, as soon as it's roasted.
Immediately, roasting, and then the first things that you want to do in life is just fill the bags immediately, nothing else in between. No lottery winning, nothing else.
That's how I live my life.
Yes, of course. You have to fill the bag in that precise moment, okay? Why? Because in that particular moment, coffee starts to pull out CO2. And you want to use that CO2 to preserve the coffee itself. How? Put the beans into your bag, okay? And when you seal the bag, these beans continue to push out the CO2.
So they literally emit CO2 from the bean.
Yes, from the bean, correctly. And the single wave valve that you have on the top, usually of your coffee bags, will allow the air that is contained into the bags to go out. So imagine that from the bottom, okay, you have the CO2 pushing the air.
All out of the valve.
All out of the valve. And then inside you will have coffee and CO2, nothing else.
Got it. So that valve is a one-way valve from inside to outside. That's the direction the air can go, but it cannot go back in.
Cannot go back in, totally.
So there is no oxygen going back into the coffee bag, and that's what we want.
Yes, and that's what we want. So this is a way to do things, but there is also a better way when it comes to coffee packaging.
Producing a bag,
Producing a bag, that is putting your freshly roasted coffee into the bag and before sealing it, filling the bag with nitrogen. Because this will preserve the coffee better. CO2 plus nitrogen, no
oxidation.
No oxidation at all. This is the best way that a roaster can do. So once the coffee bag is sealed, it's in this way, so it's ready to be showed on the shelves of your supermarket. Okay.
Makes sense. Yeah, totally. How long do the coffee beans emit CO2 after the roasting?
This depends from the roasting degrees. Usually a darker roasted coffee tends to emit more CO2 than the lighter roasted ones. So it goes from very light roasting coffee can take also a week, okay. Very dark roasted coffee can take also a couple of weeks, okay, to finish their degas phase.
Nice, makes sense, yeah. Okay, great. So now that I bought my perfect bag of coffee with the one-way valve, and I bring it home and I open it and I enjoy my first cup of coffee and it's great. how do I make sure that I keep that coffee stored in a way that it preserves the flavors, and the first is like the last cup of coffee that I drink from that bag.
Okay, so the main things that you need to have in your mind is that the coffee do not want to blend with oxygen. Okay, you need to separate coffee from the oxygen. And another things that coffee really hates is humidity. Humidity and oxygen are the greatest enemy of the coffee. Okay, so you want to separate those things from the coffee. And the best way that you can do is so if some coffee producer have a Ziploc on their bag,
Little zipper.
yeah, the zipper. So you open your coffee, you use your coffee, you close the zipper, you try to push the bag in order to make the air inside of the coffee go outside.
All the oxygen that is trapped inside is pushed out.
Yeah, pushed out through the valve, okay? And you can store it really into the pantry, okay? So away from heat source, away from humidity, away from direct sunlight. This is one of the best ways that you can do. If you want to go deeper in that, maybe if you have a vacuum machine at your house, you can totally use that, because that is the best way to preserve your coffee. So really, it separates the coffee from the rest of the world totally. The coffee will sleep, and it will be very happy about this. Okay, so nobody will bother your coffee.
Nice arrested.
Yes, so this is the very best way that you can do. Not very much people have the vacuum machine at home, so why have to take a vacuum machine at home?
Can I put my bag of coffee inside of a Ziploc bag and just seal that in case my bag doesn't have a zipper?
Yes, you can do that, but make sure that you push out as much.
Squeeze the air out.
Yeah, squeeze the air out as much as oxygen you can do. One thing that I will avoid, and I would love to avoid that, and I know a lot of people do that. I don't know who started with these things, because I really would love to have this conversation with this guy. Is store the coffee into the fridge or into the freezer. So why to do that?
We hear that all the time.
Yeah,
right? People ask, can we store is it good to store inside the freezer?
Yeah, if you want to use your coffee in the next 2 years, maybe, you go for a long vacation, you want to be back home in 2 years and you want to use that coffee, yeah, totally. So that's the right way. But believe me, this will affect a lot the flavors and the aromas that we're gonna find into your cup. Why? First, because the freezer and the fridge, they are not dry places. They are very humid places, okay?
Right.
And humidity have inside water activity. And water activity leads to fermentation, bacteria creation, and all this kind of stuff. Luckily, into the fridge, so there is not hot, it's very cold, okay? So the bacteria, they will not work. So why the coffee flavors will be affected? From the separation of the fats that are contained into the coffee, so from the coffee itself.
Is this just like chocolate inside the fridge?
Totally, it's totally the same. It's like the chocolate bar into the fridge, okay? You put your chocolate bar, your preferred chocolate bar into the fridge, and when you take it out, you will see white spots on that.
Right.
Okay, you put on your table, you wait 15 minutes, as long as you can resist, like staring at your at your chocolate bar, okay? Then you want to eat it, but when you eat it, what's happened? It's not taste as good as before.
Same.
Yeah, it's not as good as before, okay? So the same things will happen to your coffee. Usually if we buy a small bags, we will be able to use that small bags, I don't know, in a week, 10 days. So there is no reason to put the coffee into the fridge or even worse into your freezer, okay? You can really store it into your pantry, separate your coffee as much as you can from the oxygen, and this is it, guys.
That makes a lot of sense. So, Matteo, how long can coffee stay fresh? Let's answer both questions. Before you open that bag that first time, so once you buy it in the store, how long can you keep it without opening from the moment it's packed at the packaging facility? And then how long does it stay fresh? And then obviously how long does it stay fresh once we open it, if we store it properly?
Okay, so coffee, it is a dry product. So coffee, it really do not have an expiry date, okay, an expiration date. Around the world there are different laws. For example, I saw in Europe that coffee can last on the shelf for 24 months from the roasting dates. We did a lot of tests and trials, and even after 24 months, so the coffee is totally drinkable.
Yes.
But what we really suggest is that you have to use that coffee before 1 year of the date of roasting. Okay?
So it's not really a few weeks or 2-3 months, as many people think the freshness of the coffee is. It's a lot longer than that.
Yes, totally. If the roaster packed the coffee immediately and packed the coffee correctly, and if it's preserved also correctly, yeah, totally. You can open after 6 months and enjoy a great cup of coffee.
Yes, right. And then once you open it and you store it correctly, as you said, how long can we store it to preserve the freshness if we are pretty good at, let's say, squeezing the air out or vacuum sealing our package?
How can I say? A couple of weeks?
A few weeks.
Yeah, a few weeks, for sure, yeah. After a month or 2 months or 3 months, it will be not very good. But a couple of weeks, so
maybe I'll refrain from buying the 5-pound bag, and I'll just go for the 12 ounces for now.
Yes, totally.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And if I have a machine that stores a lot of coffee beans on the top, is that a safe place for the beans to be, or are they affected by oxygen?
No, totally not, because they're affected by oxygen. So it's not really separated from the outside world, okay? So just put into the machine the amount of coffee that you think you will use for the next couple of hours. Okay?
Hours?
Yeah, hours.
Nice.
When it goes like this, it goes 2 hours, not really even in days. Because if you leave the coffee into the machine and we redo the coffee the day after, believe me, I can spot the difference, okay?
Yeah.
So a couple of hours, you put the coffee and then you close it well, push all the air out, and into your pantry, into your box. It's great. It's a great way to preserve your coffee.
This is great. I learned that I can buy coffee a lot later after the roasting date than I thought, but I need to consume it a lot faster than I thought and save it in non-humid and places where oxygen doesn't get in, which is probably different from what a lot of people do by putting it inside their machines.
Yes.
Great. So that was very helpful for me and hopefully for everybody watching. So thank you again, Matteo, for being here and sharing your knowledge. And we'll see you again to make an extraordinary cup of coffee with the rest of our series. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and if you have any questions, post them down here.
And let us know your experience while preparing your coffee with the tips and tricks that we suggested to you.
Also, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more, hit the subscribe button so you can stay in touch.